Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Welcome to the show, Jill. How are you doing today?
Hello, Crystal. I'm doing very well, thank you. And thanks so much to you for inviting me on the program. I'm really honored to be here. It's great. Thank you.
So happy to have you on. I've been following you on Instagram, all your adventures and your cooking, and you just look like you're having a fantastic time. So I'm really excited to share your story.
I'm so excited to share all of this with you too.
Perfect. Yeah. So I know you're originally from Scotland, but you've been in Paris for 30 years now, over 30 years. And I want to talk a little bit about what brought you to Paris, what brought you to France.
It didn't quite work out according to plan. You see, I was supposed to meet a rich Californian guy who had a vineyard, because I did some studies in wine tasting, etc. And so I went to, cut long story short, I went back to university after I did the music. I was a professional musician, and I went back to university to do a master's in marketing at business school in Strathclyde. And I bumped into this Frenchman who started talking to me about wine, and I thought, but he hasn't a clue about wine. He doesn't know anything about this. And I thought this was actually very funny. And so it all just kind of blossomed from there. And we spoke in English to each other, etc. too. And then I came out of business school during the recession. I was supposed to be working in the wine trade in Scotland. And then he said to me, look, why don't you just come over to Paris? I'm busy working just now. Why don't you learn a bit of French at Alliance Française, and then you can take it from there. And Crystal, I had no idea. It ended up just being one-way ticket. I fell hopelessly in love. And yeah, it is the old cliche, I know, but that's how it happened.
That's so sweet, though. I love that he convinced you. He's like, yeah, there's a recession. Just come hang out in France. Like, no problem. I'm so French.
So it brought me over, yes. But I don't know what it was, but it was straight out of my comfort zone. I wasn't one of these people who had it in my mind from the very beginning. It's like, oh yes, I've always wanted to go to Paris. I've dreamt of being in France and living the French life. In fact, it was the opposite for me too. I just thought, this is kind of scary, because suddenly we'd been speaking English to each other in Scotland, and suddenly I arrive on the scene here, and he took it on. It was very serious, and he just thought, well, you're here to learn French, so I'm not going to speak a word of English to you. And it was really tough. I was talking about the wine tasting earlier on. I mean, if I wanted to have a decent conversation and get the conversation flowing, I would have to drink wine. But by the time I'd plucked up the courage to work out what I was going to say to join in the conversation with his friends, I ended up being the village idiot, because the conversation had moved on from then, and they would look at you and go, where did you find her? I mean, she's we've already talked about this earlier, but now we're on to a different subject. And I had no idea what I was talking about. Anyway, long story. I'm blabbing. It's just,
that's so brave, though. I mean, that's super difficult. And I know from dating Frenchmen myself, like you said, they just switch right into French, and you're like, I understand nothing. But it sounds like you did learn a lot. It pushed you right into that experience, and you're learning the language a lot quicker that way back then.
Oh yes, well, actually, at the time too, when I realised that the clock was ticking a bit, and I just thought, I'm actually enjoying it here, although it was tough. I mean, you know what it's like. You've been here for 2 years, and it's not all the glamorous thing. It's been, if you're here for a year or two, it's a very different situation, isn't it? Because you still got the kind of touristy vibes in your eyes, and it feels extra special. But suddenly when you hit that 2-year mark or whatever, it does get a bit scary. You feel lonely. And I mean, I see that you wrote a book about it too, and I totally identify with you on that one. Well, yes, I ended up, I worked in an international organization for 10 years. And so I was plunged into the deep end of speaking French. but then suddenly I became pregnant with my first child. And so I was still working then, but by the time I had my second child, Lucy, it was very strange how it all kind of blossomed, because I've always been interested in food. I loved baking in particular, and I loved eating, but it's really quite funny how when you've seen for yourself what it's like here is that that's the markets, that it's very much a central part of French culture. I mean, when we talk about culture, food is very much a part of it. And so, I mean, when at lunch hours, I would go out to the old brasserie and bistros and whatever. And so it was into it. But then also I got into cooking. I made many, many mistakes. I was entertaining a lot of Antoine's friends, and I'll spare you with a lot of the details, but I was learning the hard way through mistakes. But I would see lots of women eating these fancy macarons in des salons de thé and all that, with a little dog under the table, and it was all just lovely. It was just, and I kept thinking, what is this big deal about macarons? Then I would speak to lots of my French friends, and they would say, "Oh, you don't attempt to make macarons. That's going to be so hard." And I thought, well, it's not like brain surgery. There must be some kind of secret in it and all that. So I enrolled I did a cooking school. It was our local patisserie in Saint-Germain. I ended up going along to an afternoon when the kids were at school, and I thought, well, I can spare 2.5 hours. And that's how it literally started, in that cooking session in the afternoon. And I learned how to make it there in a professional kitchen. And then I came home all fired up and raring to go. And I thought, I've got this, I'm going to make it. And you've no idea, it was the most total flop, total failure. I didn't have the professional oven. It wasn't the same kind of ingredients that I was finding in the supermarket, the same kind of things that they were finding. And I don't know, I just ended up experimenting it, tweaking recipe, trying different things. And then suddenly I thought, oh, I think I've got it. I had little colorette, the little foot that is called round the side of the macaron. And I got so excited. It was working. I was managing to get it. And I ended up getting lots of confidence. And then I'd start making macaron for people coming around. And then I don't know how it happened, but the French neighbours, they were going, oh la la, she can make macaron. And suddenly this confidence boost that I got, that everyone's going, oh my goodness, so you're the macaron lady that knows how to take them up the road. And I got so excited about the whole process so I started doing that. And then it gave me more confidence, not just in the baking side, but also in the cooking side too. And I suddenly thought, you know what? I can do this. It's not as bad as I thought. It's a lot easier. Because I know what it is in France. We think French food, it can be a little bit intimidating. And you realise, well, not really. Well, of course it is if you're going to do a fancy patisserie that you find in the shops. But if you're doing the family dishes, and I was learning also from my mother-in-law as well, she would make her a big crème caramel for the whole family. And I thought, oh, I don't know if I can do that. She was making tarte tatin, she was making clafoutis. And I thought, oh, crikey, can I do this? And then finally, well, I got lots of support from my husband. He was super, but also the kids as well. They've all been my rocks, and they would say, hey, Mum, this is great. This is really tasting good. And this is the best yet. And so, it just took off from there. It was just like,
I love that. So it just started as like a little, let's just have some fun. Let's learn. And then it became kind of this obsession. It sounds like perfecting your macaron.
It's a little bit like me. It's the perfectionist in me too, is that, you say, oh, and I've got to try this. And then I start to think, oh, I can try different flavors and things like that too.
Talk about your process for writing those books. What was that like?
Well, again, I kind of fell into it again, Crystal, is that as I was making these macarons for the neighbours and friends, they would say, can you make me a box for people coming round, or that kind of stuff. And in the end, I just didn't have the time. And I kept thinking, well, I'm not starting up a business, making a macaron shop or whatever. I think I need to just put the recipes together and show them myself that it's a lot easier than you think. So I thought, I'll take away the initial fear. I'll write down all my tips and I'll write down the recipe. And so I wrote it all out for them. And then in the end, I started getting carried away. And I thought, oh, I'll add another flavour and I'll add this one and all that. And then one Christmas, my brother took one look at the printouts and he said, you've got a book here. that could be published. That looks book material. And so I was really extremely lucky because I contacted one publication house that happened to be in Scotland, and it was with Waverley Books. And I couldn't believe it. They just took me on straight away. They said, let's do it. Let's do it. It was the editor. She was into cooking and baking herself. And Eleanor, she was super. She tried the recipe and she said, but it works. I've done it as well. And so she got excited, and they all in the publishing house, they all got excited, and they were all making macarons as well. And so that's how it happened. So they took me on, found myself also trying to take photographs. I'm not at the time, certainly wasn't a photographer, and I didn't profess to be either, but I found myself taking photographs for the book as well, and just generally doing the whole, but I had a ball. I had so much fun with it. And then that's when the creative side all kind of kicked in too, with different flavors. And then, yes, they took me on for a second book, which I was very, very flattered. And they took me on for more macaron, but different patisserie, how to make easy, like eclairs and tarts and yeah, it was
so crazy, because so many people, one, dream of moving to Paris, two, dream of like publishing a book or even perfecting French cooking in any way. And I just love that you just fell into all these things. You're like, it was just fun, and one thing led to another. And here I am. And like, you have like a background in music. I mean, it just really shows you what can happen if you're just open, to learning new things.
I think so. I think it's also a question if you're really enjoying something, and also if you get support, you get the mental support. I'm not talking about financial support but the mental support of hey, mum, this is amazing. Oh, can you make this again? Can you? And the more you get the support that comes behind it, you want to make more. It's great fun.
It's really sweet. And I love that your family is so supportive too. I mean, why would they not be supportive? You're feeding them, especially like sweets and stuff. How delicious. And so talk a little bit about like your top tip for making macaron. Like, what's the biggest thing that you can give to people as a tip?
Well, I think the process of making macaron is something that you need to concentrate on the job. You can't multitask. And I think that's another reason why I love making them to start with, which also translates into cooking or doing any kind of baking that you're doing at home, is literally switching yourself off and making it like a kind of yoga. So I would cut myself off in the kitchen, close the door, and not even some music. I would just concentrate on what I was doing and whisking and seeing the feet develop in the oven. And so I think basically you just need to follow. If you've got a good recipe, you follow it and you stick to it. Don't follow 3 or 4 different recipes at the same time, thinking you can like mix them all together and come up with your own. It's like you just need to follow it to the letter. And then once you've got it, just stick with it. Yeah.
I like that, because it's true with cooking. It really puts you in the moment. It's kind of like a meditation. And also, like they always talk about with creativity, you get in these flow states. So when you're in a flow state, you're like super in the moment. And like cooking is all about that, because you have to pay attention to what you're doing and right that moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I realize I've gone on a tangent again, I think. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. We love hearing all this stuff. And talk a little bit about your food tours. So you also give tours around Paris, teaching people about food, showing them the best. Yeah.
I think that's even more important than the food itself at times, is that the French eat at meal times. And I know that sounds so basic, but they don't snack. When I first arrived here, I was like, content that sort of like if I wasn't hungry, I would like skip lunch, and then by 3 o'clock or even 4 o'clock I thought, oh, I've not had my lunch, I'll make something, and then I'd eat it then. And then my husband would look at me and say, but that's weird, what are you doing? This is 4 o'clock. I'm not gonna have like a croque monsieur now. So I thought he was really, I thought, oh, you're just it's boring, why are you doing that? No, but he had a point. And it was really funny, because the more I started to stick to meal times and be very strict about it and be disciplined too, I've discovered another thing too, is that it's actually very healthy. You can eat the patisserie with the butter and the sugar, but everything is in moderation, and they don't go out of their way to go along. Even on the pastry tours I was doing, there's something unthinkable. I would never go into a patisserie and then buy one cake and then go to another one, buy another cake and eat them all in the space of an afternoon. No way. We don't eat pastries every day. We don't eat croissant every day or we eat healthily. We'll maybe have a croissant once a week or twice a week, but everything is in proportion, but it's so much fun. It's still delicious. We get to eat all of these things, but I think, as I said, it's the discipline more than anything. Do you find that too?
For sure. And like people are always asking me like, how are French people so skinny? Because they have all these great desserts and all these butter and creams in their food. But like you said, they eat moderation, smaller, and we don't eat this stuff every day.
That's it. Exactly that. And so it ends up being very healthy. And I think something I did learn about French food in general is that I think before, that's another thing. When I met Antoine for the first time too, and now I take it as just second nature to, instead of necessarily going to the supermarket, getting a really nice big cauliflower and making something from it. You avoid them in January or February if you can, because if you get them to try and show off at your Christmas table that you've got strawberries on there, you'll actually get some funny looks from the French at the table thinking, where did you get these at this time of year? And it's like, oh, that's not very sustainable because it's come all this way. And on top of it, if they taste like turnips because they're so hard,
you'll basically just be in big trouble. Like do it seasonally or you're going to be in trouble with the French. And in your mind, why do you think creatives are attracted to Paris?
Creatives attracted to Paris. Well, let's face it. I mean, we've got so many art galleries. It's a magical city that is so much on your doorstep, and you've got so much inspiration around you. I mean, whether you're an artist or like yourself, the photography. I mean, there's always some corner you turn. There's always some kind of inspiration for any kind of creative person in terms of art or music. And well, there's nothing more creative too than going to restaurants and patisserie and discovering that, for example, this is another one. I'm having a dessert in a restaurant one time, and it was done by a famous French chef, a Michelin chef, a starred chef. And I'm having this incredible dessert, and it's with pistachio and vanilla and wasabi of all things. And you're thinking, wow. And with white chocolate, you're thinking, oh my goodness, taste all these flavors. Crazy brain. I think that's why they called it Mad About Macarons, because I'm a bit mad in this one, is that you end up being creative and you think, now I wonder how I can recreate that at home. Now there are lots of, that's what I love doing on my blog with the recipes. I love like doing a little twist to it and, these kind of things. But in this case, I had this dessert with the wasabi, pistachio, white chocolate and all that. And I thought, I'm going to make a macaron out of this when I get home. So you've got an empty canvas as well. So it is creative. There's so many different creative opportunities, I ended up making that particular flavor of macaron. And then there was a local patisserie competition with the local French neighbours. Oh. And they couldn't believe this Scottish girl turned up with wasabi, white chocolate macaron. And you're thinking, what's he talking about? The carrots are not cooked. You're playing football, for goodness sake. And it just means that the team's not going to win. There are just so many fun experiences. I fell in the garden last year, and I ended up with a black eye. And I was going around the streets. Lots of people were saying, oh, she's got, instead of saying a black eye, they would actually say, elle a l'œil de beurre noir. She's got a blackened butter eye. I think everything is connected to food here. It's incredible. So you'll find so many of these fun things that I try and share as much as I can. And it's all free. Come onto the blog, see where it is, because I've got a monthly newsletter. You can find everything there on the website. And I've started to do some videos. I've been absolutely thrilled to bits to be doing some videos inside some bakeries with our local baker in Saint-Germain-en-Laye, who's lovely, who's invited me to share some of the recipes. And so yes, I've got all of these kind of links onto the YouTube videos too. So you'll find everything there on madaboutmacaron.com.
Very cool. I mean, there sounds like you have a lot going on, and it's so wonderful to share all this with people around the world because everybody loves French cooking. How could you not? And thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. I'll share all those links in the show notes, guys. So make sure you check out her website and her newsletter, and everything else will all be there. And thanks so much, Jill.
Oh, thank you for having me and listening to all my my babble.
Well, that's the whole point of a podcast. We love the babble. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me on your program, Crystal. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you soon in Paris for a drink.
You.
Thanks so much for tuning in to La Vie Creative. You can find more information on MissParisPhoto.com. And if you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word for all my creative guests. We have the power to help them to keep doing what they love. See you next time.